All right, students, this is our Unit 5 study guide review. You should have your study guide in front of you. We're going to go over some of the problems during this video. Sometimes you will be pausing it and trying some of the problems on your own, and sometimes you'll just be listening to me going over the problems. There's a lot on this test. There's a lot of stuff you guys have done well, but now that we've mixed it all up, it's easy to get things mixed up. So I felt it was important for us to review the whole study guide together. So we're going to go ahead and get started. If you look at this top part has some information about slope. Slope is the rate of change between any 2 points on a line. So it's that rise over run. On the study guide, it says change in y over change in x. And that is how you can get it, but you can also think of it from a graph as your rise over run. Write that on your study guide just so you remember. It's your rise over run. So our slope here in this equation, y equals 3/2 x, that means my rise, which is 3, is there, and my run, which is 2. Okay, we usually did it this way, but it's still going to give you the same thing. If you went to the right and then up, it would give you the same answer. But I like to go rise then run. So that's slope. Now, when you have an equation that's in this form, that means it's proportional. That means you're going to be taking the slope and graphing it. That m here, the m stands for what? Slope. So if you're given the m, you know the slope. If it's proportional, you're going to start at the origin if you're graphing it. So if you look at the example, if they're graphing y equals 3/2 x, they're starting at 0, 0. The rise is 3. The run is 2. They plot a point. The rise is 3. The run is 2. You plot a point. It's that easy. So it's not difficult. The problem is, I know what the problem is. You guys have all this stuff mixed up. You know how to do it. That's why we have to get a good bit of practice. That's why we did the GIM kit. That's why we're going over the study guide. That's why we're going to do the GIM kit again, so that you can get these practice problems in and you'll know what to do. So if we start with the first few examples, so this one, we are going to write an equation. So we're not graphing it. We're given the graph, and we have to write the equation. So the first thing we should recognize when we're looking at these three equations is that they're all proportional. They're all proportional because they cross through the 0, 0, the origin. So all three of these are starting at the origin, which is the middle. Because they start at the origin, I know I'm going to use the equation y equals mx. That is our proportional equation. It's always that way. The only thing that's going to change when you get into upper level math is instead of m, sometimes you'll see a k. Sometimes you'll see y equals kx. But what it means is your slope. So now, all I have to do is take my equation, y equals, I don't know what the slope is, so I just put the x after. So if it's proportional, it's going to be y equals mx. All you have to figure out is m, which is the slope. So for this, you're going to take 2 points on the line. The first point I already have because it's proportional, and I'm going to follow the line up until I get to a place where it meets the corner of a square. If you went up a little further and picked this one, that would be okay too. It would still give you the same answer. So now I'm going to calculate my rise over run between the 2 points. And I can see that from this one to this one, I go up 1. And then my rise is 1, my run is 3. So slope is equal to rise over run, 1/3. So now inside for my equation is y equals 1/3 x. It's just memorizing. A lot of it is memorizing the proportional equation versus the additive equation, and then knowing how to get the numbers that are missing. Y and x are going to stay missing. You don't know, they could be various things. They're going to change based on the placement on that line. So the second one again, same thing. Y equals something times x. So I want you to go ahead and try to find the slope. Make your triangle. Find 2 points. Calculate your rise over run. And then that's what you put in that box next to x. Obviously, you're not going to have boxes on your test. You might have a click and drag. But that's to emphasize that that's where your slope is going. Good. I've seen it given 2 different ways as I walked around. So I'm going to go up here to this point. That's where it hits it. I'm going to go up. So my rise is 3. My run is 1. So that means my slope is 3 over 1. And you need the 1 if you're graphing it. If I'm graphing it and it's not already given, I want to put the 1 on the bottom so that I know the run. Right? But if I'm writing it as an equation, I'm going to simplify that 3 over 1 and just write y equals 3x. You're not adding anything. You're not adding anything because the y-intercept here is 0. And you don't even have to give it to me. I don't think there's a question on the test asked you. I've asked you that a lot, like on the GimKit and some other things, but it won't be asked on the test. So go ahead and try the next one. Try the next one. Get your slope. Some of you already have it. Awesome. No, you're fine. Let's keep going. All right, so if you haven't already, write your equation for that line. All right, who's got the equation? Savannah. Y equals 1/2 x. How did you get that 1/2? Okay, started from the origin. Now I'm going to show you could use this point, but if I use this point, I'm going to get the same answer. If I use that point, I'm going to go up 2 and over 4. If I use these 2 points, I'm going to go up 1 and over 2, right? But those are equivalent. So even if you end up with m equals 2/4, you know that's going to simplify to 1/2. So either way, you'll end up with the right answer. Yes?
Do you have to simplify the question?
Yes. You will have to simplify, not to graph it, if you're graphing it, but if you're giving it to me here, it needs to be simplified. Questions on graphing the slope? Some of you, a lot of you still have that Space Invaders worksheet. I would suggest working on some of these things that you're missing before the test so you get the practice. So this is one that has slope and y-intercept mixed up. Your test, yes it is. Your test is going to have the questions mixed up. I'm not going to give you 3 in a row that have slope and proportional and then give you all of the y-intercept group together. They're going to be mixed up. So you need to be able to identify the difference between the two. So let's take a look at slope now from a table. So to get slope from a table, you're looking at the relationship between x and y. So you're looking for what you do to x to get y, okay? Looking at this table, you could probably see from this first one, x to y, 0 to 0, 1 to 2, 3 to 6, 4 to 8. This is a what relationship? Times 2. It's a times 2 relationship. The slope is the number that you multiply. So the slope, same equation, y equals something times x. This time we're looking at a table instead and looking at the relationship, and that multiplicative relationship is going to go there. Y equals 2x. Another way you could do it is you could take, because you're trying to figure out what you do to x to get y, you could simply take y and divide it by x. So I could take 2 and divide it by 1, and I would still get that answer of 2. You could just work your way backwards from y to x to get that multiplier, which is going to come in handy when you have something like the second one. You do have a decimal one on your test. So it's not hard. I don't expect you to know how to do it in your head, necessarily, I would use a calculator for this. But for this one, again, our relationship is y equals mx, the slope. And the way I get the slope from the table is y divided by x, right? I'm looking at what I do to x to get y. So I can simply take one of the y values and divide by the x. I'll take the one on top. So I'm going to take 0.8 and divide it by 2. If I divide y by x, it's going to give me that multiplier. So you can use your Desmos or use your calculator to divide 0.8 by 2. And what would you get? 0.4. So then that means slope is equal to 0.4. So in your box, you're going to put 0.4. Or 2/5, yes. 2/5, you could also, yeah, that's good. You could also take these two, and then it's a simplified fraction. So yes, if you had one like that, I would accept either one. Because they're both, you either have a simplified fraction or the decimal. The fraction. Yeah, that button, remember, doesn't work on the SOL test, though. Yeah. All right, so go ahead and try this table. You're looking at what you multiply x by to get y. If you don't know, use your calculator and divide y by x. And don't do the 0 by 0 because that's the second one, but that's not going to help you. So this is another one, again, that would have two answers. So if I took this and I take y over x, I'm going to get 2 1/4 divided by 1, which is just 2.25. You could also take this one and do y divided by x, and I could take 9 over 4. That's going to be the best if you're graphing, if you're going to graph it to get your slope. So that means our equation is going to be equal to y equals 9/4 x. But keep in mind, you could also have used 2.25x. If you see a multiple choice and it's only given in a decimal, you're going to have to look for the decimal. Just divide 9 by 4. But just don't do 4 divided by 9. It's not x divided by y. It's y divided by x because you're trying to get the multiplier. All right, let's look at the last one. Go ahead and try that. So if you need to use your Desmos, please do that. So you're going to take any of the y values, and you're going to divide by the x that goes with it. Any of the y values, but you'd have to match it up with the x. Well, except for 0, 0, because anything times 0 is 0. Okay? All right, who got a fraction? Who got a fraction? What's your fraction? 5/4, because you can look right here. And so if I do y divided by x, it's going to be 5 divided by 4, okay? Or you could do 5 divided by 4 for a decimal. But this slope is going to be 5/4. You can leave it as an improper fraction. For slope, you can leave it as an improper fraction because you need the rise over run. If you got it as a decimal, it would be 1.25. 5 divided by 4 is 1.25. So you might even have 1.25x. But you're probably going to see it more with fractions. I think there is one decimal on the test.
On the test with the one decimal, we have to put the fraction to reduce the decimal.
And I think there's a type in the decimal. I think there's one where you actually have to type in the decimal. All right, questions so far on the front? Okay, let's go to the next page. Just got a couple more minutes until we get a break. So this is where it gets tricky. We get the slope. It's easy. We got it. And then I throw in y-intercept, and that's easy, and you got it. And then when we put it all together, we don't got it from what I saw yesterday. So that's why we're going to go back and practice each of them individually, and then we'll mix them back up tomorrow with our GIM kit and some other practice. So this tells us that the y-intercept of a line is the y-coordinate of a line where it crosses the x. I've been telling you guys over and over again, you're looking at where the line is going to cross your y-axis. And it occurs when x is equal to 0. So our y-intercept here is -2 because it's crossing the graph at -2. Your formula, we had y equals mx for slope form. This formula is going to be y equals x plus b. You have a hidden slope. What is the hidden slope? What number goes here? 1. Because it's 1x. So that means when you're graphing these, it's going to be rise 1, run 1. So your slope for any of these additives is going to be 1 over 1. And again, this is just for additive relationships that have a slope of 1. Next year in 8th grade, you're going to have additive relationships that have slopes of different numbers. But in 7th grade, you know, we're building, just like any kind of math that you guys learn, we build each year. So if you look at the graph, the equation, since it's y equals x plus b, this is y equals x minus 2. It's subtraction because that 2 is a -2. And our starting point is -2. So the positive, it's plus if it's positive, and it's y if it's what? I mean, minus if it's what? Negative. Oops. All right, so now we're going to practice writing equations for this. This is super easy. So we're going to write an equation in y-intercept form. Again, our y-intercept form, write it again. I know it's kind of old-fashioned, but when we write things down, it can help you learn it. That's not how we learn everything. That's not how we learn it in the beginning, but that's how we kind of get it in our long-term memory. So it's going to be y equals x plus b. The slope is 1, but we don't have to write it. The b is our y-intercepts. Just going to abbreviate y-int. So if I looked at the first equation, my equation is y equals x. And I'm going to leave the sign and the number blank. I'm not going to put minus or plus until I recognize it's positive or negative. So if I look at where the blue line hits my y, it hits it at this number. Is that a +3 or a -3?
+3.
Positive, so it's going to be x plus 3. That's it. There's nothing in front of the x, and we can verify that our slope is 1 over 1. 1 over 1. That's why there's nothing there. We're just adding and using slopes of 1. Renai? All right, try the next one. Y equals x, and then you're going to figure out whether it's plus or minus. I'll just put a plus or minus, and then what the number is. So you're going to figure it out. Look at the graph. Yes. Look at the graph. Look at where that line hits the y. Is it positive or negative?
Negative.
It's negative. So I'm just going to erase my plus. And it's negative what? 3. So it's x minus 3 because my y-intercept, this is 0, -3, and b is the -3.